I call to order the December Finance Committee meeting. I do want to check to be sure all our board committee members are here. Ms. Adams, I believe you're here. Mr. McIntosh, I see you, and Mr. Taylor, are you on? Okay, I don't see him. Anyway, we got three, and he'll probably join us later. To begin with, are there any items that any of the committee members or any other council members would like pulled? I have C1, C10, and C15. Ms. Adams, do you have some?
Yes, I have C14.
C14. So let me repeat those: 1, 10, 14, and 15. Any others from anybody?
C17.
C17 from Ms. Scipio.
Where is that?
There's no C17. Pick another one. Ms. Scipio,
It's the one on the Commons. Am I looking at?
that's 15.
15.
Yeah, that is pulled.
Well, my list must have changed. Let me just go back and look.
That's okay. All right. Hearing none others, can I get a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda?
Motion approved, McIntosh.
Second, Adams.
We have a motion by McIntosh, a second by Adams. And by the way, hang on a minute. Back up. Due to the Safer at Home ordinance, all committee members are participating virtually. For virtual meetings, committee members will be muted until asked to be heard. When there is a vote, it will be necessary to take a roll call vote. Committee member will be recognized and raise their hand and state their vote. So y'all have all been duly noted. We will now vote on the balance of the approval of the consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor. Mr. Clark votes aye. Those are approved. We will now go. We have 4 items that have been approved to the city clerk. Please read C1.
Item C1, information regarding RICO managed services.
Mr. McIntosh, I think you wanted this one pulled.
I did. I'll be honest. I don't really have a question or any problems with this. I'm just happy to see Tom Kareska back with us on a Zoom call. Appreciate all he does. So I'm just really want to say hey to Tom. I hadn't seen him in a while, and I'm glad he's with us.
Okay.
Great to be here. Thank you, Councilmember.
Can I get a motion then?
Motion to approve.
Oh, that's just for information. So thank you very much. That is done. We will now go to C10.
Item C10, resolution awarding a purchase order for gunshot detection system to Shot Spotter Incorporated.
I asked for this one to be pulled, and I guess I will direct this first to Assistant City Manager Logan Ford. My concern is the cost of the system versus the benefits we're spending. This is a 3-year contract, a little bit over $200,000 a year for something that's only going to benefit 2% of the citizens or 2% of the square footage. Whoever would like to, please comment on this.
Sure, Chairman Clark, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Mayor Joins, members of the committee. I would ask Chief Miles if she would please provide an overview, if the committee would like, of the gunshot detection system and also the area that it covers and how we'll be paying for this particular piece of software.
Okay, thank you. Assistant Chief Miles, I see you on there. You have the floor, and you're currently muted. You're unmuted. Thank you.
Chairman Clark, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tem, and distinguished committee members and council members. As you're aware, we received a grant for $625,000 for the gunshot detection system. We believe that by having this system, it would certainly be beneficial to the members of the city. We have been able to identify through our data that the gunshot detection system will be placed in the vicinity right now based on the number of gunshots. We're looking at right now placing it in the area of 26 and Cleveland Avenue. We do feel like there are many benefits to having this system in that particular area. There have been a number of homicides in that area, and we will be able to respond more effectively and efficiently to gun violence. And even though it's showing those numbers right now in that particular area, we would be able to move and monitor those calls for service and make those adjustments throughout the process to any area where the gun violence might increase.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from anyone else? Ms. Adams.
Chair Clark. Chief Miles, or to Ms. Logan Ford, what other cities have this in the area in North Carolina? And I know we got another item down below this one or somewhere in the general agenda. How does all of this tie together? And as Councilmember Clark said, so at the end of the day, we will be paying expenditures based on what's listed here in the action request form.
Chief Miles, if you could address how the projects are tied together and also the different funding sources that are associated with each, as there are several grants that have come in that would pay for these particular items, and repurposing those grants for other items at this point would not be an option, as we've applied for these grants specifically for the projects that we have presented. So I would ask Chief Miles if she would talk about the funding for each one of these and how all of the systems tie together.
As we move forward, we're looking forward to the general funds, are possibly budgeting in our annual budget, and as well as forfeiture funds to cover the cost of these items, the additional funding that is needed, and to generalize the connection between the two. The gunshot detection system and the real-time crime center, it would really tie in, being that the real-time crime center is a central hub for pushing out data to officers, and so that we can more effectively handle our calls for service. We are anticipating a significant reduction in calls for service and more efficient and effective investigations, and also a timely apprehension of violent offenders.
Chair Clark and members of the council, my concern is that over the past months, yes, we've seen more violent crime and gunshots. But again, I think we also need to listen to the citizens, or maybe also when we make these decisions, we need feedback. Sometimes we are making these decisions, and I know that staff and others are responsible to bring us the needed information to make the decisions. But maybe I'm wrong. Correct me, Chair Clark. I think we got, 3 items on finance that are public safety items?
Yes.
And my concern again is when we get these items, they're separate, but how do they all work in tandem for the betterment of community policing with the city, the community? Presently, the community feels like they're like on the outside looking in, and yes, while we update our technology and all of that, they don't get the benefit of really knowing how is this going to improve their quality of life. And I just wish we would had done that before bringing this to council, and maybe they have. But again, I fear that the responses we've been getting behind public safety is there's not enough transparency of what does all of this mean and how does it affect the citizens at large. Thank you.
If I could suggest Ms. Scipio, go ahead. I didn't see your hand there.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and fellow council members. One of the things that happens in the areas that are having a lot of gun violence is that the residents want us to do something about it. And it may not be affecting the people who are talking about how we're spending public safety money because it's not in their neighborhoods. But I can tell you that the gun violence that has been experienced in the East Ward and the Northeast Ward, it's severe. It had been almost every night that you're awakened because of gun violence, not knowing where it is. They have a general idea, but whatever we can do as a city and to support our police department in helping to identify where all of this disturbance is coming from and to get a handle on it, it will be beneficial to the many residents who are suffering with the misbehavior of people who've decided to operate outside of our general values. So I would be very much in favor of us considering this and knowing how it all works together.
If I could suggest to the committee, since, as Ms. Adams says, there's several items that are going to be taken up in public safety, is that we hold it in a committee and let Mr. Taylor and his group take a look at it. I think they actually meet this afternoon, I believe.
That's correct.
Is that okay with everybody for now?
Yes.
Okay, so without objection, I know, Mr. Taylor, you're online.
I am.
Wait a minute, Mr. McIntosh had something real quick.
I was going to make that same suggestion, so I'm good.
Okay, so we're going to hold in committee, and Mr. Taylor, we're going to pass this one to you for your committee to look at.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next one is C14. If the clerk would please read that one.
Item C14, resolution awarding a purchase order for LexisNexis Online Citizens Reporting System to LexisNexis Solutions Incorporated.
This is Ms. Adams. Ms. Adams, I'll let you comment first because you may have similar comments you just had.
The chair, same thing. Is this not going to public safety again? I just believe we need a little bit more information, and I think the public does too, on these items.
Do I hear an objection to holding this in committee and letting public safety, they're going to do a more comprehensive look at this at their committee? Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Okay, I see 4 yeses. So, Madam Clerk, we're going to hold that in committee and let Mr. Taylor talk about it at next committee meeting. The last one on consent that was pulled was C15. If the clerk would please read this one.
Item C15, resolution authorizing restructuring of existing debt with the Commons of Forsyth County Incorporated for the SECU Commons.
Okay, Ms. Scipio and I both asked for this to be pulled. Ms. Logan Ford, I'm going to give you the floor a minute. I would like a general introduction on what we're talking about here. It's been some time since this area has been talked about. So if you could please give us, you or whoever you would like to give us a little more information. Thank you.
Sure. I'll have Ms. Newman, our Community Development Director, provide a general overview for this item. We also have on the call, in case there are additional questions, the developer who is working on this property, Mr. Bryce Sherburne. There was a commitment that the city made regarding the Commons property where we defined a 20-year deferred loan that was forgivable over 20 years. This was for the rehabilitation of the Commons building itself, which is 20 rooms that was going to be used as a supportive housing facility. As they are moving forward to develop a new plan for this property, they are asking the city to reconsider its lien position to support the project moving forward. So with that, I'll ask Ms. Newman if she would go into a little bit more detail about the project.
Ms. Newman, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Joines, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee, and other members of the council. I'm Marla Newman, Community Development Director, and a little additional background on the Commons, which is also called the SECU Commons. It's located at 1430 Felicity Lane. It's a 17-acre campus consisting of 37 multifamily and 2 single-family homes that were originally rehabilitated by the North Carolina Housing Foundation to provide transitional housing for high-functioning adults on the autism spectrum, youth aging out of foster care, as well as housing for homeless families with minor children. As Ms. Logan Ford mentioned, the two-story SRO building, single-room occupancy building, is 20 efficiency units, and then there are 17 condominium units with a variety of bedroom sizes. The foundation had come to the city in 2016 as part of a capital campaign to rehabilitate all of the properties on the campus. And through two fiscal budget years, 2016 budget year and 2017 budget year, the city combined gave $200,000 each fiscal year for a total of $400,000 for the rehabilitation. At that time, the city took a lien position, a subordinate lien position on the entire 17 acres of the campus. And also as part of the fundraising that was done to rehabilitate the property, the State Employees Credit Union provided what was called a leadership grant in the amount of $1 million. And that led to, I would imagine, the naming rights, SECU Commons. Unfortunately, the property has sat vacant or idle since the time the work was completed in 2016. And as Ms. Logan Ford stated, the foundation has engaged a developer, Infield Delicate, and their representative, Mr. Shearburn, is with us today, to help them kind of reimagine what would become of the property to bring it back online and be useful. In your packet today, you'll see a list of various activities that are proposed for the property. The development is proposed in 2 phases, and you also have a draft plat of what the property will look like based on replatting consistent with this proposal. And so some of the more salient points here are that if you look at the draft plat, you'll see 5.
Can we bring that up on the screen? Does any way, Meredith, we can bring that up? Y'all just hold tight, Ms. Newman. Let's see if we can get it up. She's working on it.
Okay.
I hit her sideways here on this one. Ms. Newman, why don't you keep going? If we get it up, we will look at it. Whoop, whoop, hang on. There we go.
Perfect.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Okay.
Ms. Newman, if you could comment, maybe refer to colors since it's a colored chart.
Absolutely. So part of what is being proposed is in the purple areas you see, which are 3A, 3B, and 4. Those are the condominium units that at present, or as proposed, the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency would take a first position on those particular properties so that they would remain consistent with the affordable housing criteria that applied to this development when it was originally rehabbed. The green parcel, which is parcel 2, is a proposed early childhood development center that the developer would construct for family services. The pale green to the bottom right, which is parcel 1, that is currently the location for United Health Centers, the medical clinic that is on site. As part of this new plan, United Health Center would remain there, but they would also purchase that particular parcel that building is on. Same thing with family services with parcel number 2, they would purchase that particular parcel as well. The brownish, beige color in the very middle there, kind of small, that says parcel 5. Yes, that is the 2-story single-room occupancy building with the efficiency units. And that particular parcel is proposed to be its own standalone parcel with its own separate ownership. And that particular parcel, the proposal is that the city take a first position on that parcel and relinquish its other subordinate positions on the rest of the development site. The tax value of this particular parcel is greater than the $400,000 deferred forgivable loan that the city currently has on the entire property. So if we were to swap our position and become a first lien position on parcel 5, let me see here, the depreciated value of that building alone, based on the 2020 tax records, Forsyth County tax records, the depreciated value of that parcel, of that building, I'm sorry, is $675,837. That building combined with the land has a total assessed value of $1,927,000. So the city would be in a fully secured position by changing its lien position from a subordinate, it's a combination of third position and second position on the entire 17-acre parcel, to a first position on parcel 5 that's in front of you. Now, all of this is contingent upon approval by both the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency because of their current lien position, which right now is a first position on the condo units. And then BB&T, in conjunction with the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta, currently has a second lien position on the condo units and then a first position on the rest of the entire 17 acres. And the city, of course, has a third lien position on the condo units and a second position on the balance of the property. Under this new configuration, BB&T and the Federal Home Loan Bank would be repaid their debt at closing. So that's the $338,100. Then the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency would maintain their first lien position on the condo units, again, parcels 3A, 3B, and 4. And then the city would be in first lien position again. So they would have to agree to changing this configuration. In addition to this entire campus being properly subdivided and replatted according to, the requirements of the city. And I can pause here. I can answer some questions. And as Ms. Logan Ford stated, Mr. Bryce Shearburn with the developer is also on the call today and can also entertain questions.
One question I had on it's light brown on our, at least on my screen, the parcel 5 that we will have first position.
Yes.
Who will actually own it and be managing it? Because it is 20 units or something?
If I could address.
And that is part of a feasibility study that is also a part of this particular action. The developer is asking for some time to actually figure out highest and best use of that property. Part of the challenge, I think, in the past with this particular location was finding someone to operate it. And so as part of this feasibility analysis will also be some investigation into who can actually operate the SRO facility. I would imagine, and I would let Mr. Shearburn speak more specifically to this. Right now, the developer is on track to buy the entire campus from the North Carolina Housing Foundation. And I can let Mr. Shearburn speak to more specifics on that if you'd like to know more about that.
Let me, Mr. Shearburn, if you'll just hold tight, I've got 2 council members that would like to ask some questions or comments, and maybe there'll be additional things you need to comment on. Ms. Scipio, I'll do you first, and then Mr. McIntosh second. Ms. Scipio.
Yeah, I think most of my concerns were addressed. I just wanted everyone to understand that this is a 20-year deferred and forgivable loan at 0 interest, and that the building was fully collateralized. That was important to know, that the risk is not as risky as one would think. But I did want to understand what was going to happen with parcel 5. But I see we're going to be studying that, and so that's important. To come out and understand how that facility will be used. It is a very beautiful property. It's across the street from the East Ward. It's on the Northeast Ward, just across the street. And it has, over the years, had some very good utilization. It used to be the Human Service Alliance facility for many, many years, where they provided free care for the critically ill. So I certainly am in favor of this, but I did have those questions on the utility of the partial 5.
Thank you. Mr. McIntosh.
A couple points here. First of all, is there's no new money being asked to the city of Winston-Salem. This is money that we've already allocated, so we're not having to write a new check. If anything, I feel like our risk level is lowered. I feel like we're in a better position from a risk standpoint. It's going to add somewhere in the neighborhood of 37 to 40 some new units. Anytime we can add units, especially in this rental range, that's a big plus for us. And then this, I feel like, is something that fits what we should be doing, and that's providing gap financing. Since we can't afford to build all the new houses, anytime we can plug some money in and provide that last gap, I feel like that's our role, and we should do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes, thank you, Chair Clark. My questions are basically what Councilmember McIntosh spoke to about the rents. If the developers could give us some sort sense of what those rents might be, like an estimate, and when do they anticipate the start of the development and the ending, because this particular area has been vacant off and on for some time now. Thank
Mr. Sherburne, there have been a number of questions raised there. Would you like to address those?
Certainly. Let me see if I
Yes,
can.
sir, if you could give us your name and address for the record.
Sure. It's Bryce Shearburn, 328 South Green Street, Winston-Salem 27101.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Clark and Finance Committee members and other council members. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this with you, and as Tasha and Marla stated and is referenced in the package. What we are proposing and what we've been working on since March of this year is a redevelopment of the Commons campus. We have been engaged and in conditional agreement with the Housing Partnership since late March. We've worked through a number of issues on the due diligence side. We've done title survey, environmental inspection, condition of the property, et cetera, et cetera. We also went through a rezoning process to clarify the existing MUS designations. And during that process, we were encouraged through both sketch plan and the rezoning development submittal to focus and to exercise every effort to retain that low-income housing stock that's there but has not been utilized, and to expand it. And this is based in conversations and in encouragement from Council Member Scipio. We met with Council Member Parman. When she was in that position, I had the opportunity to spend a good amount of quality time with newly elected Council Member Burke, going through the project with her to make sure that she had an on the ground and a sense of its potential impact. And kind of where we are is we're trying to knit together a three-legged stool. Each of those legs need to be standing in order for us to go forward. As I said, we've been engaged in this process for going on 8 months, and we've probably got about $90,000 out there in legal, engineering, zoning, et cetera, et cetera. Our intention is to work with all of these stakeholders to pull this deal off. And it certainly is encouraging to be able to come to you all with this request. I think in terms of the questions to be answered, our project vision, I think, is amply demonstrated in Tasha and Marla's request for action submittal. There is also in your package, or we provided, a large rezoning map that shows the entirety of the development. The platted section that we're looking at now is just the initial phase. And our goal in trying to put this together is to take an unfortunately underutilized asset, which has literally been vacant since they completed the SRO expansion, and to convert it to something that is community-based, We've enjoyed a relationship with Family Services. We have just completed a new daycare facility for them in the West Salem, Washington Park area. This is another opportunity for them to not only expand their client base, but also they are in dire need of getting out of the Sarah Austin Center, which is literally falling in around them. So at the conclusion of this transaction, if we are able to pursue it to closing, we would develop for them a spanking new facility, which consists of 2 existing buildings that we would completely renovate, just like we did on Salvation Army. And if any of you would be interested at some point in these deliberations of touring that, I know Councilmember Burke expressed an interest in doing that. We'd be happy to arrange a video tour or something like that. It's truly a remarkable facility, and they're well pleased with it. And so getting back to our 3-legged stool, we've got Family Services. Their Executive and Finance Committee has approved the deal. This is similar to the Broad Street deal that we did with them. You know, they as a nonprofit want to own their facilities. It gives them an entirely different aspect of control so that we are not pursuing leases with them as would have been done perhaps in the past. And their executive and board committees have approved it. The board met last week and adopted a resolution which authorizes Bob Femka and Cliff Campbell to negotiate the purchase agreement and to resubmit that for their final approval at their meeting. I believe it's after City Council addresses this, because we wanted to have those things be approved in stages. So I believe that will occur at their meeting 1st of February. It's our intention to close the transaction February 28th. And then we would move forward concurrently with the site development work, the renovation work for Family Services. There's a fair amount of renovation that need to be done to those condominiums, which should be done concurrently. In terms of deliverability, we would propose to have those delivered in the fall. We're going to use the same general contractor, and we're going to pursue those renovations concurrently. Family Services wants to be in there September 1st. We do not see any present problems with that schedule, although there's a lot of detail yet to be worked out. With respect to income, and this gets into our discussions with North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, it's their strong desire and intention to maintain that money in place, which is not now serving the low and moderate income tenant populations. And the program under which that project was conceived is the maximum out-of-pocket program. And these are targeted for 30 to 50% of the median income. These are the households that would qualify. So essentially, their maximum out-of-pocket, these units are predominantly 2-bedroom. I think there's 16 2-bedroom and 1 larger one. Their maximum out-of-pocket on the 2-bedrooms like $392 a month. The way that that is achieved, however, is by a combination of voucher and other North Carolina Housing Finance cooperation. And by that, I mean that we have asked staff and have provided to staff an action request and to start their process so that we would in fact own those units and assume their existing debt. The difference between that deal and the thing we're proposing with the city for the present time is that we are securing additional financing to make the renovations and repairs, which will be in first lien position. So North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, you know, as part of their charge and mission, will subordinate their debt, which is a huge help to the project, as you can appreciate. With respect to the SRO, what we really need to do and what I've, proposed is that we enter into a 90 to 120 day study period. This would commence at the time of closing. And at closing, we would own the entirety. We would do the development work and out convey on a process, and I'd be happy to provide you with more detail about that. And then we would want to assemble a team at our expense, architect, we want to get community development involved, we want to get community stakeholders involved, the Harvest Drive neighborhood, obviously Council Member Burke and Scipio, since it is just literally separated by a public right-of-way. And we would want to spend that time assessing the existing project, its potentials. I think there's been a number of preliminary suggestions that we want to try to develop a more specific understanding of. And then at the end of that period, we would come back to you with a development proposal. It is likely that we would, in connection with that development proposal, we'd want to work out a deal where we would be certainly involved in it. Obviously, it's going to take more money.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a very long agenda tonight. I think you have answered the questions.
Great.
For now.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I'm all about brevity. Sorry for getting a little bit wound up about it.
That's fine.
I'm passionate about the project, but as long as you guys are satisfied with the answers, we're good to go.
Okay, thank you, sir. Can I get a motion on this from one of my committee members?
Move for approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I will do a roll call vote. Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
And Mr. Clark votes yes. That is approved, sir. And staff will work with you to finalize all this stuff. All righty, that's all for the consent. We will now move on to the general agenda, and we have a number of items there. We will start with G1. And by the way, I'm aware we have some special guests for closed session. You folks can just sit quietly, please, and learn about what your city does, and we'll get to there at some point. If you please read G1, please.
Item G1, consideration of items regarding revisions to the agreement with Winston-Salem State University for the lease of space in Union Station located in the East Ward.
Mr. Rao, could you introduce this for us?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Joines, Mayor Pro Tempore Adams, members of the City Council. Back in November of 2019, the Mayor and Council approved an initial lease agreement with Winston-Salem State for space on the second floor of Union Station. Part of their plan had been all along to utilize a little bit of space on the third level, on the street level of Union Station, about 270 square feet in the ticket booth space. So staff subsequently brought back a revision to the agreement to add that space and then offset that with an adjustment to the space on the second level, so that overall the university would still lease 8,000 square feet at $80,000 a year. In addition to that, as part of the original approval, the city committed to provide $300,000 for the upfit of the space. Since that time, the architect and the project team have looked at the space and worked on the design, and the cost estimates initially were well above the city's commitment. So we've gone back and we've looked at that. We've done some value engineering, and we reduced the cost from $815,000 to a little over $642,000. The university has pledged to contribute $225,000 towards the upfit, and then the city would increase its contribution from $300,000 to $450,000 for a total commitment of $675,000 to the project. So the action item before you today would make the changes to the lease agreement to add in the 270 square feet of space on the third level, with the offset there to the common area space on the second. So maintaining the overall square footage, and then increasing the city's contribution and acknowledging the university's commitment to the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from any council members? Ms. Adams, I see your hand first.
Thank you, Chairman Clark. I have made it no secret that when we started down this road to rehab Union Station almost a decade ago, that the community would have a place in the building. I know we have the restaurant space, and I know that there are certain pieces that we wanted to satisfy based on funding, such as government in the building as a part of it. But the city is in the building. Winston-Salem State is in the building. And I think, is it the police, highway patrol? Who else is in the building? DOT is in the building. I think that for us, and again, like I've expressed to some of the staff at Winston-Salem State, I have nothing but love for WSSU. But I made a promise and commitment to the citizens of Winston-Salem, whose money, taxes, paid for this bond and continue to pay for it, that there would be allowable space for small businesses, much like the commissary at Atkins CDC, that they would be able to come in with pop-up businesses, startups in small spaces, and maybe rotate out after a year, and which allows other entities and community members to come in. You know, if we're going to talk about community development and economic development in the community, I'm not talking about the corporations and the businesses and institutions. I'm referring to actually giving community people an opportunity to have a place in a very nice building that their taxes help pay for on a daily basis. So I would like to see, again, that the city, and it may not happen, the city has to take a stand here, to me, that we need to go back to the drawing board and figure out why is it we cannot allow the space to be used for small startup minority businesses within our community.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Taylor, I know you had a comment on this, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will speak. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will speak briefly. I share Councilmember Adams' concerns. I think when we set up, not many of us were on the council 10 years or so ago, but when we set out and put this before the voters and we gained control of Union Station, we talked about the idea of entrepreneurship. We talked about the idea of retail and commercial uses. And right now, outside of the restaurant, I'm not seeing that. So I will make my position clear. I support Winston-Salem State University. I support DOT. I support the idea of a restaurant, but we did promise the voters, the Marvel Reeds and the people of the community, that we would try to focus on entrepreneurship and retail and commercial uses. And I just think we haven't quite hit the mark. So again, this isn't against the university. This is just more focused on delivering what we promised to the voters at the time when we came to them to support Union Station.
Thank you. Ms. Scipio, you have the floor. And I think, is this your ward?
Yes, sir, it is.
That's what I thought, yeah. The councilman for the ward, please.
Yes, thank you. And fellow council members, I have researched this in terms of what was written and documented. And the first feasibility study done for the Union Station was commissioned in 2014. And Walter Robbs was the architect. And all of those designs, everything that was written included Winston-Salem State having a large presence in that building. And the discussions continued to 2014, 2015. I have not seen any documentation of a commitment to the community for this to be a center for entrepreneurship. I am in favor of helping small businesses. What I am concerned about is when we say we made a commitment, where is the documentation of that? I wasn't involved, and that's true, but when the city is doing something, we must document that. I will remind you that when we made a commitment to the neighborhood around Brown Elementary School, we actually put that in writing and deed restrictions. And we recently turned that aside. I would be very much in favor of investigating locations for entrepreneurs. But right now, I am going to remind all of us that as a city, we need to generate revenue. We need a consistent, steady revenue generator for Union Station that will give us money in this turbulent times that we have right now. And that is, in my opinion, Winston-Salem State University, a long-term occupant of that building. Historically, I'm going to also say when the Union Station became for sale up in the 1970s, Winston-Salem State had attempted to purchase that building, but because of the climate in our state legislature and their lack of having a strong foundation to actually pay for it, they did they weren't successful in getting that building. I believe that a commitment to our historically Black university is in order with this contract. We do need to commit to our community entrepreneurs. There's other developments that's coming, and I hope that we will partner to help bring a good business site for our local entrepreneurs. There are no site plans over the time that that building was being renovated that said, here's where these businesses would be. I've looked for that. If anyone could find that, I think we should consider that. But right now we have a lease agreement with a good occupant, and I think we should move forward with that.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. McIntosh.
I'd kind of long ago given up on this facility being a net revenue generator. So to me, it's somewhat irrelevant whether we go with a community agency or Winston-Salem State. Although I got to say, we're going to have $450,000 in upfit, and we're going to get $800,000 in rent over a 10-year period. To me, that doesn't seem like a really great return on equity. So if there's an ability to further work on that upfit number or to up the rent rate, I would be in favor of that.
Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, I'll say that we agree that the city is in a situation and we do need to bring in revenue, but I'd also just point out that entrepreneurs and small business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs are in a situation they also need to bring in revenue to feed their families. The fact of the matter is, it is documented that up to 12,000 square feet of space can be used for private use. And as I understand it, the restaurant is not that big. So that says there's a gap, which means initially we're intending for more retail and commercial uses. Secondly, I just want to point out that it is documented that retail and commercial uses have been recommended for this facility. The third point I want to bring is we're only talking about 270 square feet of space. We're not talking about anything else other than that. We want to have Winston-Salem State in the building. We want them to have a presence, but we just want to have the opportunities for entrepreneurs and retail and commercial uses in that particular facility. So as I said, this is not against the university. We want them in the space and they'll be there regardless. We're just talking about 270 square feet of space that we can't seem to come to a consensus on.
Thank you. Mr. Larson.
I've gotten a little confused here under the statement of 270 square feet is all we're talking about is an incubator space. Is that right? Are we going to run an incubator in 270 square feet?
Part of the lease that we are considering today includes 270 feet on the top floor or the street level.
Right.
Most of the land, most of the square footage they're renting is the floor down, which would be the second floor, which is about 8,000 square feet, give or take a little bit.
Right, and that's 8,000 square feet, which is what Winston-Salem State currently desires to set into a long-term lease.
Yes, plus the
to occupy.
Plus the 270 feet on the main.
Plus the 200 above, but so the incubator concept that we're talking about really involves the 8,000 square feet plus the 270 square feet.
No, I think it's just the top floor that's in question.
275 square feet for the incubator is all.
I will say that the floors are very different in the sense that one of them is street level that would be more appropriate for retail commercial, whereas the floor down is the back of the building's above ground, but out front you'd be below ground. So it would be more amenable to office space, et cetera. Let me get on the record first. I serve on the Board of Trustees at Winston-Salem State University. I've actually asked on several occasions, should I vote on these things? And but I have to if I'm present. They perceive no conflict of interest, which is surprising to me, but that's what it is. Having said that, it would be my contention that any tenant's better than nothing. And we don't seem to be having much success getting a restaurant in or anything else. The bottom floor is basically where the city is located. Our transportation department is down there. Having said that, Mr. Rao, I've got 4 board members and 3 of them aren't excited about this. Mr. Mayor, I see your hand up.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think you got a situation I'm hearing it kind of boils down to that 270 square feet.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we could bifurcate this and maybe go forward with at least Winston State on the 8,000 or so square feet there and revisit the 270 just a little bit separately, because I think it's vitally important that we have Winston-Salem State in this building. I mean, that's been the goal all along, as the Councilmember Scipio had pointed out when this original studies were done, to get them in there. And I heard both Councilmember Taylor and Mayor Pro Tem Adams saying they want Winston-Salem State in there if we can figure this out. So maybe bifurcate the two issues.
Our city attorney is actually in the chamber with me. Do we need a motion since we already have a lease agreement that doesn't include the 270, or can we split the baby here?
It looks like, based upon the CARF, that the 8,000 square feet was approved, I guess, in 2019. So what they're trying to do is add the additional 270. So if there's a desire not to move forward with it, and you can just leave it in committee for later discussion or vote it down, because the original lease is already approved unless BN tells me otherwise.
Mr. Rao, could
Yes,
you?
sir. Just one point. So you have the issue with the square footage, but then there also is the issue about the actual upfit and the contributions for that. In order to move forward with the upfit of the second level, we would still need, I think, to move forward with that part of it if we wanted to still table the reallocation of the 270 square feet.
Let me ask this. Can I get a motion from one of the committee members to approve a lease for the second floor for the amount previously agreed to, and with the changes in the capital investment that each party makes, but the motion would not include anything related to the 270 square feet. And if we want to bring something back later, we can do that. We have a motion on that. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I know Ms. Millette from Winston State is on the, I know she's here because I've seen her picture. She's here somewhere. Ms. Millette, my concern is if we vote on the entire thing, you're not going to get a yes vote out of the committee. And I think for now, we'll get the contract approved with the cities bringing in some additional money, capital money, and Winston State is too. And then we can see what we can do on the first floor after that. With that, we have a motion and a second, I believe. I will roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yay.
Mr. McIntosh.
Abstain.
Abstain, and Clark votes yes. So we have 3 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstaining. Is this going in front of any other committees?
No, sir.
Okay, it will then go to council the first Monday in January the 4th. Ms. Millette, I see you up there now. If you have any questions, concerns, if you would please get with Mr. Rao. I think you've just witnessed politics at its finest. We have compromised and done something. So with that, we will move on.
Thank you.
What's the next one up?
Item G2, consideration of items relating to the 2020 Strategies for Policing Innovation Grant.
Okay, y'all bear with me. My computer went out. Given where we are with our time, this also has to do with the police department. Is there any objection with deferring this to the Public Safety Committee as well?
No.
I see Ms. Adams is okay with that. Mr. McIntosh is okay with that. Mr. Taylor, are you okay with us deferring or holding this committee and let you address it, and it's your committee?
I am, sir.
Okay, so we will hold G2 in committee. We will now go to G3. If the city clerk will please read that one.
Item G3, consideration of items relating to Bellevue Recreation Center.
Okay, hang on a minute. Ms. Logan Ford, I'm working you overtime today. Would you please tell us what's going on here?
Absolutely. Chairman Clark, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee and council. The item before you relative to Bellevue brings to light some additional work that is needed for the renovation project. In April of 2019, the council approved resources to replace the Bellevue Recreation Center.
Okay, Ms. Logan Ford, can you hold 1 second? Ms. Meredith, Ms. Martin, would you mind seeing if you can bring the chart? It's not a chart, it's a diagram of the building up. Ms. Logan-Ford, if you could just hold 1 minute, because
Sure.
that picture's worth 1,000 words here, so we can let everybody know what this looks like. Okay, so Ms. Logan-Ford, you have the floor again. Thank you.
Sure. At the time the project was approved, there was $3 million allocated for the facility. At the time, we were looking to completely rebuild the facility. 1.5 of the 3 million was coming from the city's debt capacity, and the other 1.5 million was coming from Southeast Ward economic development bonds. It was determined at that time that the bond dollars could be used to support the project because we would be relocating the SOAR and the youth bill components into this facility. As we started to work with the architect for the building, it became apparent that renovating the existing facility would be more cost advantageous than tearing the building down and trying to construct a completely new facility. When we conducted a series of community meetings, there was a desire from the community to also expand the existing gymnasium that's there and look at adding a walking track to that facility if possible as well. So as we've gone back with the architect to take into consideration those comments that we've heard, there was a change to the existing layout of the building that we can go through as we're talking. Instead of completely tearing down the building, we're looking at renovating the existing space where the Bellevue Recreation Center sits. This park was acquired in the 1950s. Building was built around 1970 and is considered a neighborhood park. With the changes that we've made to the program of work, we've increased the square footage of the overall facility by 1,000 square feet to accommodate a larger gymnasium. This would allow us to add bleacher seating in a future phase, and we would also have to add some additional bathroom fixtures to accommodate the larger space. The SOAR and Youth Build programs would be housed actually in the existing Bellevue. We would create those areas in pink would be your SOAR office. There would be some computer labs that are there. We would create a tool room to have the tools stored for the SOAR and Youth Build participants. And then there would be the joint use of the classroom and the community space as needed by either the SOAR program or either other members of the community. We would reduce the size of that community space. Currently, there's capacity for a little over 100 individuals in that community space. With the repurposing of the space to accommodate those two programs, that space would be reduced to 73 individuals. We would also increase the size of the gymnasium, as I mentioned earlier, and add the walking lane. That would go in as part of this phase of construction. And then later, we would be able to add the additional bleachers and the bathroom fixtures to support the increased capacity. We would also install a wood sport floor on the gymnasium floor as part of this renovation. As I stated earlier, the cost for the project originally was $3 million. With the changes that we have added to the project, we need to identify an additional $977,000 to build out this program of work. In conversation with Councilmember Taylor, he has asked that staff prepare this item requesting to use a portion of the 2018 park bond dollars to support the additional work at Bellevue and the amount of $500,000, with the remaining balance coming from the Southeast Ward economic development bonds. So that's the information that staff has prepared for council consideration at this time. And if there are any further questions, I'm happy to address those. And I also have Mr. Robert Presswood, who has worked with the architect to develop the scope of work with staff and Councilmember Taylor, and also our Parks and Recreation Director, Mr. Royston, as well.
Mr. Taylor, this is in your ward and your project. Would you like to comment on it?
No additional comments at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Scipio?
Yes, I just had a question to Ms. Tasha Logan-Ford. What was the pink area that was on the diagram? It wasn't identified. It was above the SOAR area?
The large pink area.
The large pink area is currently, that is a basketball and outdoor basketball area. We are looking at being able to at least provide to enclose that area so that it could be used as an outdoor workspace for the SOAR and youth build programs.
So you put a roof on it?
That's part of the renovations that
It would be.
for, in addition to the gym.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. And now the 2018 park bond money, what is the amount of money we have right now in that amount, in that fund?
There was originally $1 million that was approved in the 2018 park bond. We have roughly $840,000 that is left in that fund. Council has appropriated some dollars to support the Crossnor Land Conservancy project. We also allocated some funds to support work at Long Creek. There was also the purchase of property off of Con Oak Drive, and then also some environmental work for some other projects that were considered was taken out of those funds. So we have roughly $840,000 left.
And what other requests do we have for parks that we're looking at for use of those funds?
We haven't had any formal requests to come in for the use of these additional dollars. We have had some initial conversations around the need to acquire some additional property to support a park that would be in the Union Cross area. In addition to Councilmember Scipio bringing that to staff's attention and us working to identify land there, that was also a need that was identified as part of the Parks and Open Space Plan that was approved by Council in December 2019. There were 3 areas that were identified as needing to have future parks developed, and that recommendation came behind our need to focus primarily on maintaining our existing park facilities.
So at this,
go ahead, Ms. Scipio.
I'm sorry, at this point, if we took the 500,000 out of that bond money, are you saying we only have 340,000 left after we did that allocation?
That would be correct, yes, ma'am.
And, okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Adams?
Yes, I was going to say that within a lot of the Asian communities, particularly in the African-American community and brown communities, Latino, Hispanic, our parks are very old. And that was another reason why we have, over the years, decided to allot and put money aside for the development or expansion of parks in the city. The Bellevue Park is one of the oldest parks. If you've never been there, you go there, you'll see the need. We also have the data that, unfortunately, the southeast side of the city, the ward itself, has a higher crime area than other sides of town. I've been to that park in the neighborhood, and they too want what Reynolds Park had. They too want what Haynes Hosiery have. They too want what 14th Street has, and that's gyms with walking spaces and other things that the community can utilize. I see this as a win-win, that we also have our SOAR program there, so we're able to service the community with that aspect as well, and being able to expand it. So I will be supporting this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mundy, you're next, and Mayor, I'll get you after that. Kevin, you're up. You need to unmute. There, unmute. There you go.
Recently, we had a presentation from one of the sustainability groups in reducing the carbon footprint. One of their long-term suggestions was putting solar panels on city-owned buildings and so forth. I fully admit newness to this, and I don't know what may already be in process, but I would think that anything that's starting as a new construction or reconstruction, it would be easier to do than retrofitting. So my question is, do we have plans on any of these new constructions to implement any measures that would go towards that long-term sustainability goal?
We have not looked at anything specific with the construction of Bellevue and adding solar panels to this facility, but that's something that we could address with the architect as we're going through the design.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. I just wanted to speak in favor of this item. As Mayor Pro Tem Adams mentioned, it is old facility built back in the 70s. And I think as we're getting ready to renovate and add to it, now's the time to do it right. You only get one chance to kind of do it right, and so much better to do it as we're building it. It costs double this amount if we had to go back and try to expand it later on. So I think adding that potential recreational walking track to me is a great idea. And then having the bleachers, it just gives another opportunity there. So I'm very much in favor of this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I get a motion from a committee member on, Mr. Larson, excuse me.
Yes, thank you. I'm a little concerned about 50% of the bond allocation for $1 million being located into one facility. We have a study that was conducted last year of Parks and Recreation showing major maintenance needs throughout the city of our existing parks and conditions. And we're already allocating $3 million to Bellevue. I know that Parks in South Ward, for example, are in great need of maintenance issues that are being deferred and deferred and deferred. If we're going to be spending money, I'd like to see us bring it back to upgrade the parks that we currently have and not spend another $500,000 out of that pot, basically into one particular park.
Thank you.
Chairman, I move for
Any
approval of
other
this item.
comments or questions? If not, can I get a motion from a,
Move for approval of this
excuse
item.
me, Mr. Taylor, I'm sorry, you're up.
I'm just making a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. Ms. Scipio, they tell me you have a comment.
I do.
Go ahead.
I just want to make everybody aware that over the years, we have annexed a lot of property into the city. And I would like for the Parks and Recreation to look at where we don't have parks, because I know we don't have one in the far east out near Union Cross and Sedge Gardens. We have annexed thousands of people into the city and they don't have any services. So before we utilize all of our acquisition monies, I think we should be prudent enough to look throughout the community and see where we are going to need monies to give those persons some services. And that might be in the southeast, the south, or the west ward. But I think we need to do things knowing full well what we're going to be doing with those monies for acquisition. I don't think we'll be able to get bond money for acquisition again, but I would ask if we could get some kind of look into where it is that we might need to be looking at putting parks.
Thank you. Ms. Adams?
Yes, Chairman Clark and Councilmember Scipio, we had staff to do that a few years ago, back, to create a report to show us the areas of where the parks are located and and then everybody gets a visual as to where all the parks are. Particularly the North Ward didn't have anything, and we get the last annexation, I think, might have been 2006. And they annexed the northern part of the city up near Tobaccoville, Bethania, Poptown. And that's why the money came in again to help with the acquisition of Long Creek Golf Course to create a regional like community park for the northwest end of town. We don't have a Winston Lake, a Salem Lake, a Haynes Park. We don't have nothing like that on the north end, and that's what we did. We also have to look at, and I apologize, Councilmember Clark, the acquisition of the Cross North School. The Cross North School was a school, and it was the children's home. But the city saw forth that we needed to acquire that land and make sure that it was safe for green space and sustainability and park and whatever. So again, the planning of the money that got set aside over the past decades, we had looked at, because when some of us came on council, our people were telling us, just like you, we want a park. So what we're gonna have to do as we move forward is find ways to again, raise the money, find the money, and just hope that, you know, when we turn around from the pandemic and we get maybe some money from the stimulus, if it ever passes, that we may have a little bit of money to be able to continue this initiative of creating more green spaces and parks. But I have to, again, let everybody know, the next year and a half to 2 years with our budget, no revenue, no money coming down from the feds of the states, there are going to have to be some hard cut decisions made over the next months as to how we just going to be able to survive with basic services. Thank you, Chairman Clark.
Thank you. Before we vote, I would like to ask staff, Ms. Scipio had a good point. If we could find that study, and I remember it, that had the existing parks and where we had voids, and maybe update it for Long Creek and the Crossmore properties, just a little refreshing on it. And also in the area of solar panels on roofs, to me, that's a good generic question. We have lots of flat roofs that we own, and maybe do a general study in that area. With that, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve. What do we own? G3. I'll go down the list. Ms. Adams.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yay.
Mr. McIntosh.
Yes.
And Mr. Clark votes yes. That is approved. We will now go to G4.
Item G4, monthly revenue update.
Ms. Tony, we have a closed session coming, so if you could be precise but brief, I would appreciate it.
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor, Chairman Clark, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee and council. Just really quickly, I gave an overview of the major revenues at the special meeting of the whole last month. There hasn't been many changes. We updated the sales tax numbers, so you just see a 8.7% increase. If Meredith, you can go back to the summary chart, I'll just hit a few highlights on that. The charges for sales and services reflects the $2.6 million that we budgeted in CARES Act revenue. And then the fund balance appropriation, you'll see a reflection of the $1 million increase for the subsidies to the fairground. And so pretty much everything is the same, and we'll continue to monitor and update these revenues as they come in. That ends my report.
Thank you, ma'am. That is all on the general agenda. We do have a need to go into closed session for the new council members. This is not something we do very often at the committee level, but we are doing it today. And what is going to happen, I'm going to ask Ms. Adams in a second to make a motion to go into closed session, and assuming that is approved, you will be working with Ms. Martin. You should get something on the screen asking you to go to they call it a breakout room. And for staff that will not be at the meeting, you may sign off or whatever. When we come back from it, I don't think there's any additional items. So Ms. Adams, if I could get your motion, please. And you're muted.
Give me a minute. I'm looking.
Yeah, we got you. Go ahead.
I'm looking for my email. Hold up. I got it.
Okay.
For some reason, okay, let's see if it opens. I move that the Finance Committee go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143318 11A3 to consult with and receive legal advice from the city attorney regarding a legal matter and to preserve the attorney-client privilege.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go into closed session. I will now poll the members. Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yay.
And Ms. Clark votes yes. We will now go into closed session.